1-3, solving equations with variables on both sides. All right, so let's look at this problem here. And the whole thing about this lesson is what happens when you have variables on both sides of the equation. So what we're talking about is both sides of the equal sign. That's what it means. Okay? Because if they were both on the same side, you can just combine like terms, but when they're on different sides, you have to do something different. All right, but there's parentheses, there's subtraction. Let's start with the first thing, the parentheses. This means we're multiplying 100 times the parentheses. But wait, there's two numbers in the parentheses, so it has to multiply both of them. So 100 times z is 100z, and 100 times negative 0.2, if you put that in your calculator, you'll get negative 20. Put that in your calculator. Here, negative 10, again, multiplying parentheses, but there's two numbers in here. There's 5z and there's 0.8. So this would be negative 50z, and this would be negative 8, just like that. Okay, now, the variables are on two different sides. What we want to do is have the variables together. So let's move this 50z to be with that 100z. Now, how do you move it? Inverse operations. The opposite of subtracting 50z is adding 50z. We end up with 150z minus 20 equals negative 8. Okay, now guys, it's just solving for z. We just have to solve and get rid of the 150 and the negative 20. Let's get rid of that negative 20. The inverse of that will be adding 20. We end up with 150z equals negative 8 plus 20. Negative 8 plus 20 is going to be 12. And the last step here is to divide 150. Okay, so let me put that in the calculator because that one I don't know off the top of my head. So calculator, please. 12 divided by 150. Actually, you know what? I want to see the fraction. All right, so first, I'm going to write down this. The fraction answer would be 2 over 25, and the decimal answer would be 0.08. So, since you're using a calculator, most of you are going to put 0.08. That's fine, but this would also be an acceptable answer. This is the answer for z. Z equals 0.08. All right, next. Move to the next one. Okay, we have a fraction that is multiplying. So actually, I'm going to multiply it first before I consider getting rid of it. Because we talked about how to get rid of it using the lowest common denominator. But I'm looking at these numbers and I think we're going to see something happen that's going to be pretty great. Now, when you distribute here, remember, only the numerator is multiplying. So it's 5 times 16d, like that. And it's 5 times 24, like that. The 8 on the bottom is not going to multiply. It's just going to stay 8. All right. Now, I noticed something here. 16 is now part of my numerator, and 24 here is part of my numerator. So I could multiply this. I could take my calculator and give you big numbers. It'll work. You multiply, then you divide. Multiply, then divide. But I know 16 is divided by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2. And I know here 24 also divides by 8. That's 3. So if you use your calculator, you're going to get this answer. 5 times 2 is 10 here. The d stays. 5 times 3 here is 15. Now, if you use the calculator, you'll get the same exact answers. You'll get the same exact answer if you use the calculators. All right, on the other side, we distribute 6 here. Now, that's pretty easy. 6 times d is 6d, and 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. That plus 1 is not going to multiply. It is not in the parentheses, so we just add 1. Okay, I'm going to combine these like terms. These don't have variable. So I can just put this thing together. This would be negative 6 plus 1. That would be negative 5. So I have 6d, 10d. I have two d's that I need to put together. I'm going to move the 6d over using inverse operations, minus 6d to both sides. I'm going to get 4d plus 15 equals, that's gone, negative 5. Okay, I want to move that 15 because I want the d by itself. The inverse of adding is subtracting. Now I have negative 5 minus 15. When this happens, negative 5 minus 15, it just gets lower on the number line. You're going to get negative 20 on that side, and 4d is now left on this side. Last step, get rid of the 4. That 4 is multiplying. We are going to divide by 4. Negative 20 divided by 4 is going to give us negative 5. That's the answer. All right. So those are some examples of solving equations on both sides. Let's do a couple more because something else happens with these. So let me show you what's going to happen here. First, there's a negative sign. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever see a negative sign in front of parentheses, you need to treat it like a negative 1. Okay? Treat this like a negative 1 that's distributing inside the parentheses. So remember distribution. Distribution means you're taking that number, you're multiplying that number to both things. You're multiplying them to both things, okay? So what happens here is you get negative 27 and you get positive t because a negative times a negative is positive. All right, so now your problem looks like this. Okay, we have two t's on both sides. Let's move one of them. So it doesn't always have to be this one. Like you can move this one if you want. If you want to move this t, minus t, and then do it over here, and the t's canceled out. Guys, there's a problem. If both your variables cancel out, you don't have an answer for t that's just one number. You have this statement right here. You have negative 27 is equal to negative 27. Well, yeah, a number is equal to itself, but what does that mean? What that means is you can plug in any number for t and you're going to get the same answer every single time. It doesn't matter what you plug in for t, you're always going to end up with this. So what is my answer for t? T has infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. Plural. You can plug in any number you want. You can plug in 5, you can plug in negative 4, you can plug in 2/3. You're always going to end up with them canceling out and leaving this statement. So whenever you're left with two numbers without a variable, but those numbers are equal to each other, that is infinite solutions. Okay, next. Here, we distribute, just like last time. 16 times 4, that's going to be 64. 16 times negative 3, that's going to be 48, and the m is right there. Okay, now here, we have to distribute here. 96 times negative m. So here, I'm going to put 96 times negative m over 2, and 96 times 1. Now the reason I'm taking my time with this one is because when I multiply this 96 is now part of my fraction. So if it's now part of your fraction, you can simplify that. We can simplify 96 by 2 by dividing. 96 divided by 2. And if we do 96 divided by 2, you're going to get 48 times negative m, which is negative 48m. 96 times 1 is just 96. And here is now our problem. 64 minus 48m equals negative 48m plus 96. And check this out. If you move this one to be with this m over here, again, they both cancel out. But this is important. You get this. You get this statement. 64 is equal to 96. So if I owed you $96, I can give you $64 and we're good? No, these are not equal. These numbers are not the same value. So this is a no solution. And what this means is that there is no answer for x that'll make the two sides equal to each other. There's nothing that's going to work. So that's a no solution. All right. Next, we got a couple word problems we got to work out. So let me pull them up on the screen and we'll try to solve them pretty quickly. So coffee, yes, one of the biggest imports in the world. So Arabica coffee costs $20 per pound. Robusta coffee costs $8.75 per pound. How many pounds of Arabica coffee would you mix with 5 pounds of Robusta coffee to make a blend that costs $12 per pound? Organize the information on the table. So the table is kind of a strategy to help you organize this. So if you don't have a table, here's how you would write it down. As you read the information, okay, I'm going to write it up here. Arabica coffee. What's the cost of Arabica coffee? $28 per, multiply, per pound. And LBS, libras, pounds, that's how it goes. Okay? Robusta coffee cost $8.75 per pound. Okay? Now, how many pounds of Arabica coffee would you mix with 5 pounds of Robusta coffee to make a blend? So a blend, if you haven't heard of a blend, is when you take 2 or more kinds of coffee beans, you mix them together, you make a blend. So you're adding these two up to make your blend. Okay? Now, the blend costs $12. And the rule here, the rule of business is you want to be able to say, if you sold this separately, if you sold the 28 pounds here and the 8.75 here, you should still make the same amount of money if you sold it mixed together. So these two prices and pounds should be equal to the prices and pounds of the blend, all right? So I'm going to separate that real quick. Now the question is, if you mix 5 pounds of the Robusta, 5 pounds, how much would you mix here? So we don't know, this is the one we're missing. We don't know how much Arabica to mix. All right, so here's how they would put it in the table. If you put it on the table, they would make this X. So you would have, it would look like this. 28X, and then you would multiply these two together. So I take my calculator, let me pull the calculator out. 875 times 5. 875 times 5. 4375. All right. So this is how much it would cost for the 5 pounds here. We don't know how much this one would cost because we don't know how much to mix. But if you mix these two together, if I label this as X, and I have a total combined pounds of X plus 5, I can multiply the blend price times my mixture to get 12 parentheses X plus 5. And that would make it so that if I add these two together, I would get the same value as selling the blend. So how do you write this as an equation? The equation would look like this. 28X plus 4375 equals 12X plus 5. And now, guys, that's kind of what your table would look like. And this is what the equation would look like. And then we solve this. We're just going to solve this. So we got to distribute here. So we got to distribute 12 times X and 12 times 5. So I'm going to get this. Okay, so I get 12X plus 60. I have 2 X's on both sides. So what I want to do, I'm going to kind of do this. I'm going to move this 12X over here. And what you can also do is, I want to move that over there because I want the X's by itself. I'm going to move 4375 over here. And then use my calculator because I know this will cancel out. And I know this will cancel out. and then I'm just going to be left with two numbers on both sides. So 28 minus 12x, that's going to be 16x. And then my calculator, 60 minus 43.5. 60 minus 43.75. 16.25. So back to my problem. Here we go. I'm going to divide this by 16 because I want to solve for x, because x represents the amount of Arabica coffee. So again, I need my calculator. 16.25, let me just clear that. 16.25 divided by 16, and I get, I'm going to round that, 1.02. So remember, this is a word problem. So what did what did this represent? About a little over 1 pound, 1.02 pounds. That's how much of the expensive Arabica coffee, the one up here, that's how much you would mix with a Robust to make this kind of blend. All right? All right, one more word problem, and then we're done today. The last word problem. Cameron pays 95 cents per song with his current music service. Cameron's friend tells him there's another service that has a $15 joining fee but charges only 80 cents per song. What number of songs does the new service become less expensive option than Cameron's current service? So, right, at first it just looks like, oh, it's cheaper for the song, right? It's 80 cents versus 95 cents. Well, let's just talk about it for a second. Imagine, let's just say this is Apple Music, right? So we have Apple Music, right? Trying to draw the logo. We have Apple Music, and imagine if they charge you 95 cents a song. I think they actually charge you 99 cents, but 95 cents per song. So if you get one song, it's 95 cents. 2 songs, you multiply it. 3 songs, you multiply it. 4 songs, multiply it. And that'll give you the price of the songs. But there's a new service. There's something new. But they're going to charge you $15 to be a member. But then after you're a member, then every song is going to cost you only 80 cents. But remember, you have to pay $15. So you have to add that to your purchase. So it looks like, well, $15. Do I want to pay 15 bucks to get the songs cheaper? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on how often you're going to be buying songs versus just streaming the songs. Because if you're going to stream and you don't want to own it, this is worthless, right? You just go to Apple Music. But if you like to own the songs, then maybe it's something you want to consider. So let's talk about this. Now, if I write this as an equation, I want to know, when will I spend the same amount of money? So when will I spend the same amount of money on Apple Music when I compare it to spending that same amount of money on this new music service? So when will I spend the same amount of money? I'm telling you, when will they be equal to each other? When will these things be equal? So to do that, we set the two things equal to each other. I have two x's, so I'm going to move this x over here. Remember, you want to line up your decimal points. When you use your calculator, just make sure you put the decimal point in the right place. You're going to get positive 15x equals $15. Next, if you're solving for x, we're going to divide by 0.15. And when you divide that, x equals 100. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, remember, x for us here represented the songs. So it's how many songs you buy. To make this worth it, you would have to spend you would have to buy 100 songs. If you bought 100 songs here, and if you bought 100 songs here, you end up spending the same amount of money. So if you're downloading less than 100, so if you're buying less than 100 songs, just stick with Apple. Just stick with Apple Music. But if you're going to download, if this is going to be more than 100, if you're going to download more than 100, then you should do this. Like if you're going to download more than 100 songs, then you're saving money, because after that, this is now the cheaper option. So the answer was, it depends. If you're going to buy more than 100 songs, you should use the new service. If you're going to use less than 100 songs, just stick with Apple Music.